just change this. Click and okay, that's better. I think. All right. Okay, let's do it.
Yes.
And I'm very interested to listen.
Okay. I think you will be disappointed.
No, I'm sure I will. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
We can start, please?
Yes, please.
Jaya Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Gaura Chandra Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Gadadhara Jaya Srinivas Jaya Mukunda Vasudevi Jaya Hari
Hare Krishna. It's so nice to be here with all of you and inaugurate this wonderful series on every town and village, where we're going to be exploring the principles and strategies that Srila Prabhupada has used to spread the Krishna consciousness movement and that are directly linked to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's own strategies and principles in inaugurating and spreading Krishna consciousness, and how this will lead to his holy names being heard in every town and village. So to start off our program, I'm very, very pleased to introduce Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj, who is joining us from, I'm not sure where actually, Maharaj.
Vrindavan.
Where you are in the world right now.
I am in Vrindavan.
Okay.
Govardhan.
Empowered place. And you're going to be leading us off. I'm not going to spend time introducing you too much. There's a lot of information in our bios description. You can, all of our viewers, if you want to read. But basically, Maharaj is one of the leading devotees in our society, leading the devotees in Russia and other places. So many different services you have, and written, both in writing and in oral and in video and so many things. So I won't spend much time. People can research and learn more as they like. But rather ask you to introduce your topic. Before that, I thought, we talked about this a little bit before you came on, that considering the world situation right now, it might be appropriate that we all offer some prayers for the devotees in Ukraine, and pray that the Kali Yuga characteristic doesn't go further. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you. Your topic is how the viral effect, we've all heard about viral effects, particularly in relationship to social media. But I think you're going to be telling us how that same principle can expand and to extend itself into spreading Krishna consciousness and spreading the Sankirtan movement in other ways. So I'm looking forward to it myself, and without further ado, I'll ask that you please take us away. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Pancharatna Prabhu. Thank you for inviting me to give this talk in this series of lectures before Gaur Purnima. So I'll read a few verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita to start this talk, which explain the method of spreading Krishna consciousness adopted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his South India travels, and then try to explain the the philosophy behind it, and if you can call it technique, although there is nothing technical about what I'm going to speak about. So it's not a trick, it's not a technique. But anyway, let's read a few verses. That's the verses from the beginning of the 7th chapter of Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord's tour of South India, starting with the verse 97. Very important verses, 97, 98, 99, and maybe a few more. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Ei Shloka Pari Pathe Chaila Gaura Hari Loka Dekhe Pathe Kahe Bola Hari Hari. Chanting this verse, the famous verse Krishna 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 He, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Gaura Hari, went on his way. As soon as he saw someone, he would request him to chant Hari Hari, Bola Hari Hari. Say Loka Prema Matta, Hana Haya Bali Hari Krishna, Prabhura Pache Sangi, Yaya Darshana Satrishna. Whoever heard Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chant Hari Hari also chanted the holy name of Lord Hari and Krishna. In this way, they followed the Lord, very eager to see him. Katakshani Rahi Prabhu Tari Alingya Vidaya Karila Tari Shakti Sanchariya. After some time, the Lord would embrace these people and bid them return home, having invested each of them with spiritual potency. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that this spiritual potency is the essence of the pleasure potency and the knowledge potency. By these two potencies, one is empowered with devotional service. Lord Krishna himself or his representative, the unalloyed devotee, can mercifully bestow these combined potencies upon any man. Being thus endowed with such potencies, one can become an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Anyone favored by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was empowered with this Krishna Shakti. Thus, the Lord's followers were able to preach Krishna consciousness by divine grace. And a couple more verses. Sei jana nijagrami koriya gaman Krishna bole hase kande nachya nukshan. Each of these empowered persons would return to his own village, always chanting the holy name of Krishna, and sometimes laughing, crying, and dancing. Yari dekhi tare kahe, kaha Krishna nam, ei mata Vaishnava kaila saba nija gram. Such an empowered person would request everyone and anyone, whomever he saw, to chant the holy name of Krishna. In this way, all the villagers would also become devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In order to become an empowered preacher, one must be favored by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his devotee, the spiritual master. One must also request everyone to chant the Maha Mantra. In this way, such a person can convert others to Vaishnavism, showing them how to become pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then one more verse. Gramantara hoite dekite aila yata jan tandra darshana kripaya hayatan rasam. People from different villages who came to see such an empowered individual would become like him simply by seeing him and receiving the mercy of his glance. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm very honored to be with all of you and to speak on this topic because we're all followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and we want to follow his example and his ideal. And Sri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami explains in this initial chapter introducing Lord's travel in South India, how Lord Chaitanya converted everyone into the pure devotional service while traveling. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, specifically before explaining particular episodes and stories of his travel, he says that this event, which we just read, which he will continue a little more elaborate, this event would happen in every place. He doesn't repeat himself again and again and again, but in the very beginning he says that wherever the Lord would travel, he would request everyone to chant the holy name. For some time, people attracted by his personality and by his beauty and by his ecstatic moods would follow him, chanting the holy name. And then all of a sudden, the Lord would turn around, embrace them, empower them, and would send them back home. Not to Godhead, but to their village. And in their village, they would do the same trick again and again. And as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, in this way, everyone in South India has become a devotee. Now, sometimes I myself was wondering, was it really true? Is it not an exaggeration? Because sometimes, the biographers can be carried away by their moods and ecstasies, and they start exaggerating some powers. But I wanted to explain my personal experience, which actually proved to me that this, which is explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in this chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, is actually true. I myself was traveling quite often in South Indian states, and specifically in Kerala. And one particular phenomenon I noticed, actually the first time I encountered this phenomenon was in the birthplace of Shankaracharya. I came to visit this little village where Shankaracharya, first great Acharya of Kali Yuga, took his birth. And there was a Gurukul, there is a Gurukul there in this village, and there is, approximately 100 children who studying Upanishads there in this Gurukul. And we came with Bhaktivinoda Maharaj, actually, at the lunchtime, and for nothing else, we sat down to take prasadam in this Gurukul, in this Mayavad place. And before eating prasadam, they started chanting prayers. As you may imagine, they didn't chant Sharira Bidya Jal Jodindriya Tahikal. Instead of that, they started reciting Upanishads. It went they went on and on and on reciting some, enormously long, unending Upanishads. But at the end, when they stopped reciting Upanishads, all of a sudden they started chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and chanted it 3 times and then started taking prasadam. Everyone was relieved, and under the auspicious sound of Harinam, we also took prasadam. So I was wondering, why do they chant Hare Krishna? They're supposed to be Mayavadis. They are core Mayavadis in the birthplace of Mayavad philosophy in Kali Yuga. Then I was traveling in different temples, and most of the temples in Kerala especially, they run by either non-Sampradaic people who don't belong to any Sampradaya, or they are under very strong influence of Mayavad Sampradaya, even though it's Krishna's temple. Like, for example, the famous temple in Guruvayur. Every day there is a elephant procession for the Lord Guruvayur. And again, even though all the priests and everyone there, they're all Mayavadis. They worship Lord Krishna, but they're Mayavadis. They worship in their own way. But again, with great surprise, I noticed that during the procession, the only thing which they chant is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then in other temples, I saw the same phenomenon. Then I came to Udupi, which is the place, the headquarters of Dvaitavada, of Madhvacharya. And there, in Udupi, during Rathayatra procession, again, everyone was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, fair enough. I thought maybe it's a local custom, this and that. Maybe this is some established tradition in them. And at one point, I asked my friend, who is a very great Madhva scholar, who knows all the scriptures, everything which Madhvacharya wrote, and very erudite scholar who knows so many different scriptures. And at one point, conversing with him, I asked him, why, please tell me, why, on which authority do you people chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare? Where is it coming from? What is the root of this tradition? To my great surprise, he became puzzled, and he said, actually, I don't know. And at this moment of time, everything, came into place, and the whole puzzle became clear to me, and I realized that they're still remembering Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveling in all the states. This is the memory. This is not established in their scriptures. This is the very strong samskara, which was actually imprinted in the consciousness of all these people, inhabitants of South India, by just, one lonely sannyasi, 500 years ago, once passing through their village. And that was enough for these people 500 years after that to remember this, and in honor of this sannyasi, to chant in every religious ceremony which is there, still to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, including this Mayavadis from this Gurukul, which I explained, and everyone else. So we still can see this effect. People don't remember Lord Chaitanya. I mean, now they have started coming to their senses because of Hare Krishna movement, because of ISKCON, because of preaching of ISKCON devotees in all the states. But before that, they probably didn't even know the name of this sannyasi. This sannyasi just passed by their village. But the impression which he left was so strong that this established tradition is still going on there. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Maharaj told me that in a few villages of Kerala where he preaches and travels, he saw in the temples on the altar two male figures with their hands raised. And when he would ask who are these, they didn't know. They still worship these Gornitai deities, but they don't really know who it is. So this is the effect of Lord Chaitanya's preaching, and of course now it's coming to another level due to the eagerness of the followers of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada very clearly speaks in these purports that the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if they are empowered, they can convert others into this Vaishnava cult, into this Vaishnava religion. And the method of this conversion is very clearly explained here by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. But before becoming overly enthusiastic about this method, before trying to imitate this method, we should really clearly understand the science behind this method, because it's easy to say this is just viral effect and just let's do this pandemic of Hare Krishna chanting, let's imitate Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let's carefully examine what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing. After leaving Alalanath, where he parted with his followers, his devotees from Jagannath Puri, broken-hearted, crying on the sand of the shore of the ocean, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu turned away, and immediately the first thing which he did, he raised his hands up in the air and started chanting this shloka, this verse, Krishna, 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 He. Oh Krishna, please protect me. Please take care of me. So this is the first very important element which we should remember. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while traveling in this South Indian tour, he wanted to show what is the way to preach Krishna consciousness. And the first very important condition to be able to preach Krishna consciousness, to spread Krishna consciousness, is complete surrender to the Lord, surrender to His will. Very clear understanding that I am not doing it myself. It's the Lord who is sending me on this mission, and I'm surrendered to Him, and you please protect me. I'm not going to protect myself. This raised hands raised in the air, means that I am not protecting myself. I am not trying to do this and this or whatever. My hands are completely free, and my hands are given to you. I am doing your service. You please make me your instrument. And we can see also the example of Srila Prabhupada. The first thing which he does while arriving at America, he writes this very amazing and deep poem, Markini Bhagavata Dharma, the spreading of Bhagavata Dharma in America or in the Western world. And there he says, I'm yours. It's a complete prayer of surrender. If Sharanagati is expressed in any of the Vaishnava bhajans, this is the place where Sharanagati is expressed with utmost force and utmost sincerity. So that's the first point which we should very clearly understand to be able to succeed in this process. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that the Lord, while chanting this shloka, would also ask others to do the same. He was, again, very clearly showing another important principle of preaching. The principle of preaching is that don't ask people something which you don't do yourself. Sometimes we may justify ourselves and, at least I'm preaching the right thing. Yeah, that may be, but if you're not doing it yourself, then your preaching has no potency, actually has no effect, it's hypocritical. So Lord Chaitanya is again showing by his own example what the preacher should do. The preacher should first and foremost himself chant the holy name all the time. He should put the holy name deep in his heart and not leave the holy name. Kirtaniya Sadahari, this understanding that the Lord is Kirtaniya. Kirtaniya basically literally means worthy of praise. This understanding that the only one who is worthy of being praised is the Lord should be very deeply established within our heart. Otherwise, the next thing which we will do, if this is not established in our heart, then we will try to glorify ourselves by the means of preaching. We will use, or rather misuse, the preaching as the means to get prestige, to get honor, to be glorified ourselves. Why? Because Kirtaniya Sadahari is not there. We are not really sure that it's only the Lord who should be glorified, not us, not anyone else, but the Lord and His holy name. So the Lord is showing by His example, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing by His example what we should do. We should chant ourselves first and foremost, and then we have the right to ask anyone else whom we see to do the same. And hopefully they will be attracted by our example. That's another very important element of this whole structure, very structured way of preaching. So it is clearly said here by, written here by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that people became completely enamored or enchanted by the way Lord was doing it. The feelings of the Lord, the emotions of the Lord were so deep, then the people, they were immediately attracted by this emotional force. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not forcing everyone to do it, was not really even preaching to them. Even though later Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami will say that to some worthy people the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will explain the philosophy. But his initial impetus, to give this impetus to people, he would just say, just chant Hare Krishna. As much as Srila Prabhupada was saying this his slogan, Prabhupada's slogan, chant and be happy, is not a very cheap thing, because Prabhupada actually invested into this slogan his realizations, his experience. When Prabhupada says, chant and be happy, he means it because he himself experiences the happiness, and because he himself experiences the happiness, this happiness is being transmitted through the media of the holy name. What I want to say is that if we want to be efficient as a preachers, and we want to be efficient as a preachers because this is our service to the Supreme Lord, we have to be, we not only have to chant the holy name, we have to be happy by chanting the holy name. And genuinely happy, not artificially happy, not externally happy. Because the holy name will only be effective if it is invested with our realization. So, sometimes people are not happy being devotees. When sometimes those who consider themselves my disciples, they ask me what is my most important instruction to them. I say that my most important instruction to them is to be happy in Krishna consciousness. Because everything else will be useless if this basic realization of happiness of Krishna consciousness is not there. We will not be able to influence anyone, or even if we will be able to influence anyone, it will be cheating, because we are not happy ourselves, and we are converting others to make them unhappy as much as we are ourselves. Misery loves company. We want to convert everyone and to make everyone similarly miserable as ourselves. There is no point in doing this unless we experience the happiness. And it basically means that we have to have certain realization. So next, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that for some time the person partially converted into the Vaishnava faith would follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doing the same thing. He would go behind him chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, or chanting Hare Gopal Govinda, chanting bhajan, or following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again, this is very important. And only after some time, while the person would follow him, being attracted by his example, by his beauty, by his emotions and everything else, only after some time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all of a sudden would turn around and embrace such a person. And this is the final step in the conversion. Without that, the person is half converted. The main point is that this spiritual power, which is, as Srila Prabhupada explains following Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is the combination of Samvit Shakti and Hladini Shakti. The two, or Chit Shakti, Samvit Shakti and Hladini Shakti, two most powerful energies of the Supreme Lord. Spiritual energies of the Supreme Lord. This bhava or prema is nothing but combination of these two energies. It's very clearly explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he explains the nature of bhava. He says that this is Vishesha, this is the spiritual energy, Vishesha spiritual energy, the special portion of the spiritual energy, not just general Chit Shakti, but the special portion of spiritual energy, which is the combination or the union of Hladini Shakti and Samvit Shakti, the energy of bliss of the Supreme Lord and the energy of cognizance, the energy of consciousness or knowledge, as Prabhupada would translate it. So it's very important again to take into consideration this little detail. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not embrace each and every one immediately. Like now there is one famous lady preacher. She is living in Kerala. And she is embracing everyone at the first meeting. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not like this. He would embrace somebody, but only after a certain period of strict following behind him. When the person would chant and would prove his sincerity. And not only prove his sincerity, but also preliminarily purify his heart to be able to hold this spiritual potency. Because this spiritual potency is amazing and potent, and our heart has to be trained to hold this spiritual potency. Sometimes devotees prematurely, they dream about prema, and they say why prema is not coming to me, why Lord is so stingy, why I'm following and following. And it's very simple. Our heart is not capable of holding it. There is no power to hold this spiritual energy, because first our heart should be preliminarily cleansed. You cannot really, pour the new wine into the old, into the old bag, because it will not be able to hold this new wine. So this new wine, the divine wine of Krishna Prema, of love of Godhead, we have to have certain preliminary period of purification. And of course, in case of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this purification was very short and very quick. In case of other people, it may take some time, but still, nevertheless, the principle is there. If we want to spread Krishna consciousness, not just an external form, simile of Krishna consciousness, not just external appearance of Krishna consciousness. If we really want to spread Krishna consciousness, we have to be Krishna conscious ourselves. It means that we have to be in touch with this spiritual energy. We have to become the transmitters of this spiritual energy, to transmit it further. We can be the, we have to really imbibe this spiritual energy deeply within ourselves. Then only the viral effect will be real. Otherwise, it will be just, another fad, another fashion of Kali Yuga. Sometimes we are trying to adopt this means, but we really have to understand the deep science behind the preaching techniques or preaching methods of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We can only give bhakti. Bhakti is only coming from heart to heart. It's a very intimate process. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing this. When he's saying embrace, we should understand that it was a literal event when he would embrace somebody. But we should also understand that this embrace of Lord Chaitanya means very intimate and close relationship between the spiritual master or between the preacher and somebody whom he preaches. This transmission of the spiritual energy will not take place if there is no close relationship between the preacher and the one whom he preaches. Srila Prabhupada used to say that, the preacher has to shed the gallons of blood to turn anyone into Krishna consciousness, if it's real Krishna consciousness. It's not a cheap process, what I want to say. Embrace means that you have to invest your heart into his heart. There has to be heart-to-heart relationship. If there is no heart-to-heart relationship, if it's just a superficial imitation of the same process, again, the success will not really be there. And then, of course, when the person is invested with this spiritual energy and his heart is bubbling with this spiritual energy, it's overflowing his heart, he cannot really do anything else. He will just preach to others because he's so happy. He cannot stop it, And as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, that whoever will see him will be infected by this virus of Krishna consciousness. We're all living in this very strange time when everyone is afraid of viruses, but at the same time, we also want to spread this pandemic of Krishna consciousness, and that's definitely viral disease. And to be able to effectively infect others, we should not have mask over our our mouths. We should really very loudly chant the holy name, but with full energy and conviction, not just the shadow of the holy name, not just namabhas, but the real holy name. And for that, of course, we have to struggle in our solitary bhajan and in our, desire to preach the Krishna consciousness. We have to shed the tears of sincere desire to give Krishna consciousness to somebody else, and then we will be empowered. The empowerment is an easy process, but we have to be prepared to be empowered. That's the difficult part of the process. Otherwise, the empowerment is an easy process, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, but we really have to have this sincere desire within ourselves. And my time is over. I can go a little more, few more minutes, because we started a little late to explain this topic. But again, what I want to say, the main thing which I want to say is that to be able to spread Krishna consciousness, you have to be Krishna conscious yourself. And Krishna consciousness is not cheap. It's the matter of purity of heart. It's the matter of pure desire to please the Lord. Basically, we oftentimes forget the basic definition of Krishna consciousness in our eagerness to spread Krishna consciousness. That's a natural human phenomenon. Sometimes we are so eager to spread something that we forget what we are spreading, what exactly it is. But Krishna consciousness, which is defined by Srila Rupa Goswami in this famous verse, Anyabhilashata shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam anukulyena Krishna anushilanam bhaktiruttamam. So Krishna consciousness means constant desire, permanent desire within the heart to do something which is pleasing to Krishna, up to the point of completely forgetting what is pleasing to me and what is not pleasing to me. Until this moment of time when we forget what is pleasing to me, we cannot consider ourselves Krishna conscious. And I mean, it's an unfortunate reality. I'm sitting here, I'm not claiming that I'm on this level. I'm just reminding myself how it is not so cheap. Basically, and this is the example which Srila Prabhupada showed to us, because he sincerely showed this example that for him it doesn't matter whether it is pleasing for him or not, whether there is convenience for him or not. He was ready to take any inconveniences to do something which is pleasing to him. How does he know what is pleasing to him? He knows what is to the Lord. How do we know what is pleasing to the Supreme Lord? Because it's pleasing to my spiritual master. This is how the parampara works. We don't know whether it's pleasing to the Supreme Lord or not. We may not be sure. We may imagine or speculate something. But if our spiritual master says that this is what will please the Supreme Lord, and we do this with this desire, I'm going to do something which is pleasing to the Supreme Lord, and it doesn't matter for me whether it is pleasing to myself or not, then only at this moment of time we are Krishna conscious. Actually, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that Krishna consciousness does not even start with the level of nishta. It really starts with the level of ruchi, because only when we have this strong taste for the processes or for the processes of Krishna consciousness, for the holy name, we are in touch with the real holy name, and we will be able to forget our own conveniences or inconveniences, comforts or discomforts, and we will be able to spread this. Having said this, I'm not trying to discourage anyone else who is not on the level of Ruchi. I'm trying to encourage everyone to, as quickly as possible, to reach this stage. Because this is the real stage. The Krishna consciousness starts at this stage. Before that, it's a shadow of Krishna consciousness, which is important. We have to start somewhere. But to reach this stage, we very clearly have to remember ourselves. What does it mean to be Krishna conscious? It means that at least when I sit and start speaking, at least when I take my beads and start chanting, when I sit behind harmonium and start chanting the holy name in kirtan, I first have to say to myself, I'm doing it to please the Lord, and I should say this before I started doing some devotional activity. That is very important thing, because there are two different processes of bhakti. One process of bhakti, I'm doing something, and then at the end I say, Krishnarpanamastu. Idam Krishna, idam namama. Krishna, this is for you. I'm offering this to you. But Krishna consciousness, if it's in its pure variety, means that before doing any devotional activity, before, the first thing which we should do, why I'm doing this, what is my motivation, why do I chant the holy name, why do I chant it on beads, why do I preach, why do I speak in front of you, why do I read Srimad Bhagavatam, why, what is the reason, what is the motivation? The motivation is, I want to please the Lord. Because the Lord will be pleased if I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam, if I'm chanting the holy name, if I'm doing kirtan, or if I am preaching. So if this is the motivation, and in the beginning, when this motivation is not yet completely overwhelmed, we're not overwhelmed by this motivation, if we're not overtaken by this motivation, if this motivation is not really firmly established within our heart, it basically means that before this stage of Ruchi, we have to remind ourselves it again and again and again. I am doing it to please the Supreme Lord. I am doing it to please my spiritual master. I am doing it because I want their pleasure. I want to see how they are pleased. And if this is established very clearly, then there is a hope that something which we do will have the real tangible effect on other people. And having this tangible effect on other people, it will change their lives. And in this way, we will really serve the mission of our spiritual master. And the Lord will be pleased with us and will give us the contact with these two most important and glorious spiritual energies of the Lord, Samvit Shakti and Hladini Shakti. Otherwise, he will not trust us. This Bhakti Shakti or Krishna Prema is the most cherished treasure of the Supreme Lord. And he will not throw the pearls in front of swine. He will not do this. He will not entrust to us these energies, most important, most pure energies of his, unless we become completely trustworthy. And trustworthiness means sincerity of each of our endeavors in this Krishna consciousness movement. So we have to remind ourselves again and again and again, and then this viral effect will take place. And everything else which is described here will repeat itself, and we will become the real followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Before that time, we're trying, and that's glorious itself, but we also have to be realistic about what we can do. But definitely we should try. And in this way, the prediction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be fulfilled. Prithivite achayata nagaradigram sarvatra prachara hoibe moranam. So I guess now I should stop according to the schedule of our event. I wanted to tell a story, but anyway, it's maybe some other time. So, Pancharatna Prabhu, what shall we do now? I don't hear you. You're probably muted.
I am.
Yeah, now I can hear.
Yes, I had to do so that no extraneous sound would enter into your wonderful talk. So much to think about, so much to reflect on that you gave us today about how we can deeply serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is needed, what empowerment we have to aspire for. We do have some more time for questions. If anyone has a question, they can post it on our comments in regards to what you talked about. Let me just see. Okay. So, well, yes, please, can we hear the story? Okay, so I guess you have to answer. You have to tell us the story.
Okay, that's a very interesting story. It's not so commonly. It's a story about Lord Chaitanya, which is taken from Govinda Kadacha. This source of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's biographies is somewhat questionable, but the story is so good. And that even though the source may be a little questionable, the story is very typical, and probably the story is good itself. And you will hear this story. You might have heard it. This is the story which actually took place while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling with 4 of his companions from Navadvip to Orissa. And they already left Bengal, which was ruled by Mohammedans, and Orissa was much more peaceful state under the able rulership of Maharaja Prataparudra, and it was a Hindu state, peaceful Hindu state, and they felt much more free, while traveling in other places. Sometimes of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was completely fearless, but all the people which were around him were quite fearful by his enthusiasm to spread Hindu religion, quote unquote, or chanting the holy name of the Lord. But in Orissa, they were more relaxed, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going a little ahead because he was so eager to reach Jagannath Puri, and he reached one place where in the village pond, the dhobi, the washerman, was washing the clothes. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this dhobi who was completely absorbed in this stupid process of washing clothes, by beating it on the stone. And immediately the compassion overwhelmed his heart. He was thinking, most probably, that here is the human being who is endowed with this rare opportunity to serve the Supreme Lord, and instead he is just wasting his whole life by beating this, dirty clothes on the stone. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approached this dhobi washerman, and he said, "Please chant Hare Krishna, say Haribol, say Haribol." And this dhobi was very suspicious because he saw, he didn't even look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He didn't want to look. He only saw the orange clothes, and he thought, oh, some beggar has come. So he said, "I don't have time," and started beating and beating and beating. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was relentless. He was begging and again and again and again, "Please chant Haribol, please chant Haribol." And ultimately, dhobi said, "Okay, first dhobi said, I cannot do this because I have to earn money for my living. I have to do my job." And sometimes we have similar experience. We ask somebody to chant Hare Krishna and they say, I have no time. I have to earn money. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what he did, it's also very important and glorious. He said, it's no problem. You please chant Haribol and I will wash the clothes instead of you. So I will free you. I'll give you some free time. I will do it. So at this point, it was too much for Dobby. He thought it's not good, some sannyasi is asking me to do this. I cannot allow the sannyasi to wash the clothes because it's a dirty job. And he said, okay, what should I do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, just say Haribol. He said, Haribol. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, say it once more. He said, Haribol. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, say it once more. He said, Haribol. And then when he said Haribol third time, he started dancing and laughing and saying, Haribol, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And he became completely mad. And he was dancing in a mad way. And the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approached and they saw this amusing scene, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sitting and watching. And he's very happy, This dog is chanting and dancing. And then the wife of this washerman comes with a plate of rice, and she looks at her husband, and she's wondering what's going on. And she said, I never thought that you're such a good dancer. Where did you learn dancing? But he doesn't hear his wife, which is itself a sign of spiritual ecstasy, because otherwise, the voice of the wife is very, easily penetrating your heart. So he couldn't hear the wife. And, the wife is coming closer, and she looks at his eyes, and his eyes are completely blank, And she runs back to the village and says, my husband is possessed by ghost. There is some ghost possessed my husband. He is just dancing like a madman. And the whole village is running there, and they all see this scene, and they're wondering what's going on. And then somebody who is very bold, the boldest one, wants to kind of bring him back to the senses. And he runs to this person, to this Dobby washerman, and takes his hand and, just pulls him down, sit down, just be quiet. And as soon as he touches his hand, the surge of spiritual energy comes to his body, and he starts chanting, Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. But he is not completely absent-minded, so instead of chanting and dancing himself, he runs to his villagers and started touching every one of his villagers, starting with the wife of this Dobby. And everyone starts dancing and laughing and chanting. That's the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching technique. We cannot really imitate it, but that's the story which was told. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew what he wants to do. He wanted the whole world to dance. And actually this is what Nityananda Prabhu said while in the last kirtan before going to the South India tour. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing kirtan with all the villagers from Alalnath and all his devotees, and everyone is dancing, and Nityananda Prabhu is looking at this and said, very soon the whole world will be dancing like this and chanting the holy name. Anyway, that's the story. I don't know if...
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. That was so wonderful. And that's really viral. I mean, that's the ultimate viral effect. Well, we can aspire, right? To
we can inspire.
To be that kind of medium, to be that kind of, how Srila Prabhupada put it, that the iron rod, when the iron rod gets put in the fire, it becomes like the iron rod. So we can get ourselves really in the fire, and we can transmit in the same way. This should be our aspiration. This is the beginning of our series. Thank you, Maharaj. You really set the tone, I think, for us to aspire to see how by understanding, like I think you brought out in the beginning, it's not technique, it's principle. It's what are the underlying principles that we have to understand in order to actually spread Krishna consciousness, see the holy names in every town and village. So invite everybody to share this with everyone, what you've watched. Come back tomorrow. We're going to be here every evening in India, morning in the U.S., and in between in other places. And we'll be doing this every day from now until Gaur Purnima, and trying to really explore. In one sense, we're also creating a repository of this that can be shared for our society going forward. So I look forward to tomorrow and the next day. And I thank you again, Maharaj, for...
Okay. You said Shilpa Karini, some question from Shilpa Karini, or is this already?
Let's see.
Yeah. Ananta says,
Okay,
Ananta
there is
says,
something here. Just want to know what is pleasing to Lord Chaitanya if there's no Harinam, there's no chanting, no preaching. I think you made that pretty clear.
Yeah, I made it very clear. Srila Prabhupada made it very clear what is pleasing to this.
Yeah,
and of course,
we have to serve the mission.
Yeah.
Amara Jai
Guru Hoy. Guru Hoy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll
Thank you.
call it.
Thank you very
And,
much. Hare Krishna.
Look forward to seeing you also.
Okay.
And by the way, just a quick note for everyone who missed it. Yesterday we had an extraordinary event, Maharaj. I hope that you may have also been able to tune in. If not, please do. We're organizing all the material on our 10-hour-long video on the inauguration of number 1 Ultadanga Road, Ultadanga Junction Road. This promises to be a real milestone for our society and our movement and the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. Here it is, yes, the birthplace of a revolution. We all felt, I was very privileged to be there, and we really felt that that the work that has been done has called into that place and called into our movement some energy that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada have, that kind of energy that you spoke of. We hope that we can catch it, catch the virus.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.